As we know, a nuke is by far one of the most dangerous superweapons on the planet, as its destructive capabilities are no joke at all. One single detonation can flatten a city, melt steel, and leave the ground glowing with deadly radiation for decades. But here's the real question. What happens if that nuke doesn't hit a small country with no defenses, but instead slams right into one of the most powerful nations on Earth? Would they survive it? Or would the country completely fall apart in a matter of hours? Today, I'm going to break down what would actually happen if a nuclear bomb was dropped on some of the strongest countries in the world. And trust me, the results would definitely surprise you. Some of them have built insane underground bunkers. Others could launch a counterstrike before the first explosion even hits the ground. And a few? Well, let's just say they'd go full apocalypse mode without hesitation. So grab your radiation suit, because this is going to get wild. Okay, let's start off strong with one of the biggest countries, China. What would happen if China gets hit by a massive nuclear explosion? First of all, China isn't just big in land. It's big in cities, people, and power. A direct nuclear hit on somewhere like Beijing or Shanghai would be catastrophic. Millions gone in seconds. But here's the twist. China's massive landmass means one city getting wiped out doesn't end the whole show. Plus, they've got deep underground bunkers, a nuclear triad, and a military built for retaliation. You hit them, they hit back, hard. But that's not really what we're talking about right now, okay? China isn't clueless. They've got massive underground bunkers, early warning radars, and anti-ballistic missile systems like the HQ-19 just for situations like this. Although success isn't guaranteed, it's better than nothing. But with their dense population and urban clustering, that first hit would still be brutal. Air pollution plus radiation would be a recipe for a nightmare. Still, China plans decades ahead, and they've got the cold steel mindset to lock down and rebuild. It'll take years, but come on, they didn't get wiped out. Their survival chances would be around 68% due to high resilience. But the cost would be terrifying. Yeah, China made it out alive due to their size. But how about if it hits a smaller country like Japan? Oh man, if a nuke hits Japan, we're looking at a completely different story. Japan may be known for their incredible technology, but it's also one of the most densely packed countries on Earth. A direct hit on Tokyo, the biggest city on the planet, would be catastrophic. Millions would be gone instantly. And unlike China, Japan doesn't have the space to absorb the blow. It's literally just an island surrounded by water. Okay, maybe water might help to cool down the radiation zone or aid naval escape, but come on, this is Japan we're talking about. This could possibly trigger a tsunami, and with limited evacuation zones, this would just be pure chaos. Sure, they've got missile defense systems like Aegis and PAC-3s, but those shields aren't perfect, and one slip could mean disaster. Their mountainous terrain makes bunker building tough. Add in radiation plus limited land? Yeah, nowhere to run. Their recovery would take decades, if ever. I think Japan's survival rate here is just about 25 to 30%. They are a high-tech nation, but low chances if the blast hits home. Okay, let's talk about New Zealand, because this one's actually kinda interesting. If a nuke hits New Zealand, first of all, where are you even aiming? It's small, isolated, and not exactly a global military target. But let's say someone really wants to vaporize the country for whatever reason. Yeah, it'd be devastating. The cities aren't built for war, and there are no serious missile defense systems in place. So that's a straight-up hit. The impact would be catastrophic. The blast would level the entire city in seconds, and with New Zealand's small population and limited urban centers, losing one city is equivalent to losing a massive chunk of the country's heart. They have very little military infrastructure to respond. Plus, being an island means limited evacuation, and they would have to rely on outside aid, which might not come if the world is already nuking itself. But radiation wouldn't spread too far. So most of the country, especially places farther away like the South Island, might not be affected much and could still be safe. New Zealand's survival chances is just around 45%. Next up is Germany. You see, Germany is a country with really good defense. They have high-level technology, excellent air defense, and even a strategic location. Cause you see, Germany is in Europe where defenses there are coordinated, which is kinda cheating for this video to be honest. And they've also got a decent landmass, giving them room to absorb some damage. But let's be real, if a nuke actually lands, say on Berlin or Munich, the impact would still be devastating. Their missile defense systems like Iris-T and Patriot batteries are solid, but they're not flawless. And while the government and military might survive underground, millions of civilians wouldn't be that lucky. Since Germany is heavily urbanized and its infrastructure is tightly packed, even with early warning systems and bunkers for high-ranking officials, civilians would still barely escape. The damage would be unreal. It would affect both land, the economy, and send Central Europe into panic mode. This one would be around 58%, since they could possibly recover. But one thing though is that they would now be super dependent on international support, and it's going to take them a long time. Okay, let's let's look at a relatively powerful country, Russia. Russia is one of the global superpowers. It has one of the largest nuclear arsenals and an absolutely massive landmass. Cities are spread out, the government's obsessed with military defense, and they've got deep Soviet-era bunkers scattered across the country. They also have some of the coldest, most isolated regions on Earth, great for hiding out. So what could possibly go wrong if a nuke was launched right at them? Well, first off, let's say the bomb hits Moscow. That would be a global earthquake in itself. Millions gone in seconds, the political center shattered, and the ripple effect would crash through every major Russian system. But here's the thing, this isn't Russia's first rodeo. Their entire Cold War mentality was built around surviving a nuclear war. Their missile defenses like the S-500 and older A-135 systems are legit, and while nothing can guarantee survival, they've got a real shot at intercepting or at least reducing the damage. Add in the fact that their population is more spread out than most countries, and that gives them breathing room. Radiation would still be a major threat though, especially with wind carrying it across vast distances, even into neighboring countries. Infrastructure in big cities would be annihilated, and recovery would be brutal, but not impossible. And let's not forget, Russia's terrain and climate actually help here. It's hard to invade, hard to track, and honestly, half of Siberia could just go untouched. That's thousands of kilometers of nothing where people could retreat and rebuild. So yeah, it's not going to be easy, but Russia's got the doomsday playbook memorized. Their survival chances, I'd give them a solid 72%. High resilience, deep preparation, but it's still the end of an era if that nuke lands. Now, let's see how a country like the UK would handle the heat. The UK might be a global power, but when it comes to surviving a direct nuclear hit, things start looking not so royal. First of all, the UK is tiny compared to countries like Russia or China. It's a compact, highly urbanized island. You hit London, that's not just the capital. That's the brain, the heart, and half the economic engine gone in one flash. And unlike Russia or the US, the UK doesn't have vast wilderness or deep underground bunkers all over the place. Sure, they've got some Cold War-era shelters, and yes, they have Trident submarines for retaliation, which is great if you want to nuke someone back. But what about actually surviving the first strike? That's where things get dicey. The UK has missile defense, but it's limited. They mostly rely on NATO systems, and that means if something slips through, there's no second chance. Radiation spreads fast in such a compact landmass, and with most of the population packed into the southern half, there's almost nowhere safe. Also, let's not forget their location. They're an island, and while being surrounded by water sounds like a defense advantage, it also means escape is hard. Evacuate to where? Ireland? France? Good luck if the ports and airports are gone. Rebuilding would be extremely difficult. The UK imports tons of essential goods, so post-blast, they'd be scrambling for resources. And while the British spirit is strong, you can't tea and biscuits your way out of nuclear winter. So what's the survival rate? Honestly, around 35%. Enough resources and alliances to maybe crawl back over time, but the initial damage would be utterly devastating. Alright, now let's talk about the United States. The big boss of global power, the country with enough nukes to accidentally end the world twice. But what happens if the US itself becomes the target of a massive nuclear strike? Let's say a nuke lands smack dab in Washington, D.C. Yeah, that's a direct hit to the government, the Pentagon, and the brain of US command. The immediate chaos would be unimaginable. Leadership wiped out, military coordination in disarray, and millions gone in seconds. But here's where things change. They've got one of the most advanced missile defense systems in the world, things like NORAD, THAAD, Aegis, and GMD. They're not 100%, but they give America a decent shot at intercepting incoming threats before they land. Their location also plays a huge role here. The US is huge. You hit New York or DC, but you've still got places like Colorado, Texas, Alaska, even entire military bunkers buried in mountains like Cheyenne Mountain, still intact. Their landmass is massive, and they've got decentralized command systems in case of a crisis. On top of that, they have deep continuity plans. The US has literal doomsday planes, airborne command centers that stay in the sky during nuclear emergencies. So even if ground command is destroyed, they still have control from the air. But don't get it twisted, the hit would still be horrifying. Their urban centers are enormous and interconnected. Losing just one of them would send shockwaves through the entire country's economy, healthcare system, and political stability. Panic would spread like wildfire, and the global stock market would probably fall. Plus, the US has major nuclear plants and critical infrastructure all over the place. Hit the wrong spot, and things could get even worse. So what's the survival rate? Despite the chaos, America's size, technology, defenses, and planning mean their chances of surviving and eventually bouncing back are about 75%. But if you want to see a country that could 100% survive a nuke barrage, then check out this video to see me create the most powerful country in history. Go on, check it out.